It's still the program this morning on ITV, and this is the next discussion segment of the program. We are going to be looking at matters arising on the Supreme Court's verdict on the Imo State governorship election. We are all aware that as at day before yesterday, the former governor, Emeka Ihedioha, woke up a governor, but at the end of the day, he wasn't a governor. That is via the verdict of the Supreme Court. They say Ihedioha out, Uzodinma in. People, this particular verdict has been generating reactions. The opposition party is saying it is the death of democracy as usual, while the ruling party is actually hailing the judgment. But we are going to be looking at how is this going to affect other judgment, because we still have like 6 governors who are in waiting at the Supreme Court. And to discuss this with me, I have Barrister Stanley Dien. Barrister Stanley,
it's my pleasure. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, a lot has happened since this verdict. So many talks, so many reactions, and what would you say? You're a legal practitioner. When you heard the verdict, what were you surprised?
On
the verdict declaring Hope Uzodinma governor of Imo State.
Well, yeah. Basically, what we'll say it's democracy in action. Of course, the common parlance that democracy is an ass. In other words, or the law itself is an ass, sorry. And meaning that there are certain things that happen that sometimes you sit back and look, say, wow. You understand? You ordinary thing would not happen and all of that, but therefore, somehow the law, the system permits that. So I think for now, we may not be able to be in the best position to actually make some conclusive legal analysis. Reason being that the Supreme Court is yet to give the reasons, as to how they arrived at the decision they took. However, we understand very well that the issues that were canvassed before the courts are also in the public domain, and of course, the very short judgment that was delivered also gave idea as to what most likely would have warranted that decision. Of course, you know very well that Hope Uzodinma predicated his case substantially on the fact that there was an unlawful cancellation or exclusion of the results that he got from some polling units, about 300 and something polling units.
388 polling units.
Of course. And that he believed that if the vote he got from those polling units were not unlawfully cancelled or excluded, results having been announced at that point by the presiding officers and result sheets issued to him, that if they were not excluded by the ward or state coalition officer or the returning officer, Hope Uzodinma, Ihedioha wouldn't have won. In other words, he should have been the validly elected governor of Imo State, and that by virtue of the exclusion of the votes from those units, he was therefore deprived. And therefore, he went to the Supreme Court to say, look, I have been cheated, and I'm asking to do this. Of course, at the tribunal resolved in favor of Ihedioha, and of course, at the Court of Appeal, majority of the panel, members of the panel, decided in favor of Ihedioha, and of course, there was a dissenting decision that was from one of the judges that was in the justices that was in the panel, and as it got to the Supreme Court, I think the Supreme Court found the position of Hope Uzodinma meritorious on the grounds that having adduced evidence, certified result sheets with regards to the polling units where he alleged that result was cancelled and that he had won in those places, calling witnesses, about 54 witnesses, you understand, in trying to prove, you understand, his case. And unfortunately, Hope Uzodinma, the Ihedioha, the immediate past governor of Imo State, from what we gathered, only called one witness.
Okay.
And merely responded by way of address. You understand? And did not file either a cross appeal, you understand, or petition, as it were, to challenge, to adduce, call witnesses, or adduce, for example, one would have expected that the lawyers, with all due respect to them, I mean, they are very, very renowned lawyers and senior advocates, but one would have thought that if one of the ways to have tried to whittle down, if not successfully, debunk the argument of Hope that would have been to call witnesses, adduce documents. For example, I mean...
Okay, are you trying to say that the more witnesses you have, the more chances...
Not necessarily. You can have 100, you can have 100 witnesses.
Okay.
Do you understand? But one credible witness of the other person, you understand, can nullify or, in fact, debunk successfully the 100 evidence, you understand, of that witnesses, so long as they are not credible or weighty enough to make the judge to tilt, I mean, the cause of justice the other way around. So it's not a number of witnesses. If the witnesses are credible, if the witnesses are relevant.
But in this case, it affected the
No, I think what actually happened was that the result sheets, do you understand, Obuzodimma, from what we gather, was able to tender before the court result sheets, you understand, that were issued to him by presiding officers. Remember that there are a plethora of authorities. For example, in the case that involved David Mark and Abu Bakar Usman, I mean, in the senatorial election then, court had held also that where a presiding officer had announced and declared a result, do you understand? He cannot, nobody, the coalition officer, whether the ward or the returning officer, cannot purport to cancel that election. It's only a court of competent jurisdiction that should do that. So in the case of that involved Hope Uzodimma and all of that, you understand? He was able to adduce evidence to show result sheets that were issued by the presiding officer. But for whatever reason, the coalition and of course officer at the ward level or the state level and of course the returning officer cancelled those results. Do you understand? And the law is that if you do so, you don't have the power to do so. Do you understand? Now, what he did was to now produce the results sheets and tender before the court, called witnesses. But the counsel to Ihediorad did not, you understand, adduce, let me say, sufficient witnesses.
Could it be
or
that he was very sure?
I think they downplayed that. I may not know, but I think it downplayed, and that was fatal. With all due respect, that was fatal to that case. Because if we don't reduce the possible credibility, you understand, enough to, what it should have simply said, say, look, these result sheets are fraudulent. It could have been fraudulently or criminally obtained. That the results were written somewhere. Do you understand? I mean, election is systemic. We talk about politics being political science. Politics is a science. If you are not very systemic, very vigilant, from the point of even the election is going on. As election is going on, you have to have people, members, that you saddle with responsibility to monitor, to make sure that your agents must make sure that he does not go to election polling unit and count back without result sheets. I was a member of state secretary of a Welga party, National Conscience Party. We have cases like that, where you send an agent, some of them are not well tutored to understand the rudiments of the game. They go there and
when they see
they can even go there and the opposition candidate just bribe them with money they collect. So at the end of the day, they may have cases of irregularities, but you don't have you don't arm yourself with evidence, documentary or otherwise, to be able to say that yes, this election has been manipulated. So sometimes candidates, parties, don't take this thing serious. From all indication, Hope Uzodimma seem to have been very, very thorough. That is not to say, because I know very, very well, if you look at the most elections in Nigeria, forget the levels of connivance with the presiding officers, some of the electoral officers and all of that. You don't understand. But the point is this, whatever is your position, make sure you understand the rules of the game and follow it very well. So it appears Hope Uzodimma had done his job by ensuring that he got the result sheets that the presiding officers issued to him and they were certified by INEC. Do you understand? And that being the case, the cancellation of those results by collation officer, returning officer, you understand, is in breach of what our law says. And that's what the Supreme Court had looked at. Okay, by adding the results of those polling units that were cancelled to the one he had already secured, you understand? And by the time they added them, it was more than what Ihedira got, and that was how he was declared winner.
There was a time the Supreme Court was like the holiest of holies. You know, people revered the Supreme Court. But recently, the Supreme Court has come under intense attacks. How would you reconcile that? Could something be going on?
I wouldn't want to agree to such a notion and all of that. I mean, there have always been issues. That is the gospel. I mean, unless we don't want to visit, I mean...
No, but like in the past, most times you hear whenever the Supreme Court gives a judgment, it's people applaud it, they laud it, and they say, it's like that. But recently,
like I said,
anytime a judgment comes from the Supreme Court,
like I said,
you begin to hear attacks from different quarters.
I will answer in two ways. The first is the fact that there have always been issues. In other words, there have always been situations where the Supreme Court would take it, especially political matters. Of course, you know politics. I mean, Nigerian politics is riddled with sentiments here and there. So there have always been that. But one of the things that seem to have promoted the reaction of the people, we are in an era of social media. I mean, by 1999, 2003, 2007, a lot of people didn't even have access to food. And even at that, the social media the platforms were even fewer. You get the point. Now they are everywhere. So there's greater preponderance, you know, the greater reaction by the people. And again, politics is gradually, you know, having a grip of Nigerians. You know, I mean, we have practiced so far 20 years. So the participation, the interest demonstrated by people in 2003, in 1999, 2007, yes, and cannot be compared with now. Not only that, the population of the electorates have increased over time. The electorates, the number of those registered voters in 2003, 1991, are far outweighed. So you should expect naturally that it will generate a lot of interest. Do you understand? While it may be shocking or it may be disturbing, you can't take that away. Do you understand? What is important is for people to begin to have respect for constitutional authority, and for those who occupy these constitutional authorities, whether as judicial officers, as INEC, as police, and all of that, should as much as possible try to conform with the rules of the game, to dispense the actions within the ambit of the law, to promote the collective good of the people over selfish interests and all of that. But whether or not people are going to talk, definitely they're going to talk. Of course, you know, in Nigeria here, with the growth of a two major, let me even add that one of the things that have contributed to the level of controversy or the uproar among the members of the public is the fact that we now have two major political parties. In the days that PDP was a dominant political party, it was such that, look, people couldn't even have opportunity to even talk, because what would you say? So what you find now is that you have two dominant political parties which have now, in other words, their country-wide popularity has bolstered, you understand, their members, you know, across those lines to do what? Speak. By the time you now have with the social media influence now, so you should expect that there's so much interest. Of course, you saw what happened in Zamfara State. You know that, the difference, APC scored about 570,000 votes, and the PDP candidate got about 149,000 votes. But the APC, the Supreme Court said no. By the time they look at the pre-election matter as to whether or not the primaries conducted by APC conform with their constitution or with the law. And the Supreme Court said no. Do you understand? They did not, meaning that all the votes, you understand, that were cast for the APC candidates, the State Assembly, National Assembly, all of them were deemed to be what? No. Void. And the PDP was declared. That is the law. You see that in that one, that some PDP members were excited. Do you understand? To them, the law was in application, and you don't blame them because APC messed up. Now, you find this one now, you get the point. You see PDP members are not grumbling. You know, it is natural. I mean, they will tell you the Supreme Court has messed up. Democracy has died. But when it was around, we saw what happened in Rivers. Again, APC bungled up and all of that. In fact, in the case of Rivers, it was so funny in a way, but you don't blame anybody. I mean, first, APC members failed to play team spirit, to demonstrate team spirit. And for that reason, you don't blame the Governor Wike. He was able to follow very well. He filed action to also challenge and all that. And at the end of the day, the Supreme Court said, well, the APC had no candidates. That is the law. You may not like it. For example, in the case of Zamfara State and Rivers State, one will ask, what is the place of the electorate? The Zamfara State supporters of APC cast their vote and got majority vote.
Yes, I was
candidate.
about to come to that.
But
does
because
that not, does the law?
No, that's what I'm saying. But because of the malady, orchestrated by the leaders of APC or members of APC in the state, the mandates that they gave had been set aside. So the question is, at what time do we operate so that the interests, the voices of the people would have a say in determining such cases? And do you know the irony? Those political players of APC in Zamfara State have gone without paying any compensation to the people. Do you understand what I'm saying? The same thing is happening in Imo here. I get it. Now, when you look at the whole thing, now, Uzodinma have been declared to be a winner today. The supporters of PDP are feeling bad, and you don't blame them. They've gave their mandate, their governor was there, but because of certain legal issues and all of that, do you understand? Now, would you want them to, now one would say, okay, should they blame Hedora for not doing a diligent legal, for his lawyers not to have done very well, to have been able to challenge the argument or the case submitted by Uzodinma? You get the point? Or would you blame the Supreme Court? What would the average supporter of the PDP in Imo State feel like? Because as long as he is concerned, he or she is concerned, he feels robbed. Do you understand? Some of them may not understand the legal dynamics that have resulted in that. As long as they are concerned, they feel robbed.
Exactly, because I have seen some stipulations concerning how many votes Ihedio had got, how many votes Uche Nwosu got, who came second,
of course,
and how many votes Hope Uzodinma got. So already, in a layman's language, people are already stipulating those votes, and based on those votes as stipulated by people, they feel that the judgment was not good enough.
Yeah, when you look at, like I said, you don't blame the people once again. I mean, even the permutations, of course, there are issues as to the fact that the number of votes, when you add the number of votes that Uzodinma has now to the total number of accredited votes, do you understand? It will exceed what was accredited. Do you understand? But I think depending on how one looks at that. For example, if the accredited voters, you understand, was only concerned about what was collated, do you understand? In other words, those units where the elections were not were cancelled, were those votes there relevant? Were they computed as part of the accredited voters or not? We are not there to know. You get the point? So, but the point is that there's going to be issues. What I earlier wanted to state was this. If we can make our laws in such a way that these political players, in other words, where someone is proved upon judicial decision to have benefited or perpetrated electoral fraud, do you understand? Yes. There should be compensation. There should be punishment. Apart from jail terms and all of that, there should be compensation. If I had illegally occupied a public office as a result of election that the court had declared to have been, now a result was fraudulently obtained. Okay. You understand? Okay. There should be a law where they will refund such monies. Do you understand? Okay. If you do it that way, let me tell you, a lot of the matters will not bother to go to court. Not only that, if matters go to court, politicians are not going to be use delay tactics to remain of while delaying the cases. Do you understand? Because they know very well that, look, there is punishment, either by way of jail term or by way of, financial, monetary, fines, as it were. That way, I think, will make some progress. In all sincerity, I pity the time with the judiciary. No lack of, I always said it. To prove electoral fraud in Nigeria is very, very Herculean. Difficult. That is the truth. If you look at the presidential election, that one is the most complex. For you to expect, for example, Atiku, who challenged the presidential election of the president, to get witnesses from 36 states across the polling units to testify that election. Do you understand? It is Herculean. And for you to assemble those witnesses and documents within the limited time you are supposed to file your election petition, it's something you cannot achieve. And that is why, over time, we had advocated that the onus of proving election, the onus of proving it, should be on INEC.
How can INEC do it?
Yes. We are saying that because it is difficult for a candidate who alleges that there was electoral irregularity, as the case may be, to gather these materials within the time given and file a very watertight petition that could assist him or her in proving his or her case before the tribunal. Do you understand? That if you give that onus, in other words, you are simply saying, if INEC had announced that Stanley Jane won the presidential election, do you understand? And you now allege that, look, that you won the election instead of Stanley Jane. What INEC should come and do is to INEC to come and prove that it substantially complied with the Electoral Act in conducting that election.
But in most of these cases, INEC is usually invited.
No. What INEC simply comes to do, as INEC simply watches the petitioner, who had to now, be able to prove his or her case in a very difficult condition, especially when you're talking about the whole state or the presidential election. Do you understand? And INEC simply watches. In fact, sometimes they allow the two parties. For example, if, like what happened here, INEC will simply watch Ihediola and Uzodimma doing the legal tactics, and their lawyers sometimes merely adopt the position of the respondent. You get the point. It's very rare for you to find INEC turning around to support the case of the petitioner.
Okay, INEC is supposed to be independent and neutral.
That's what we are saying, that because INEC is in custody of the basic materials that the petitioner would need, do you understand, to use to prove his or her case. Let INEC be the one that will prove substantial compliance with the election. So that way, what you will now do, if INEC has been able to demonstrate that, I didn't even to prove, it burden now shifts. The burden of proof now shifts from INEC to the petitioner to now disprove, to lead evidence to say, no, these your claims were not true. This is what happened. By doing that, the burden on the task on the petitioner will be reduced. Do you understand? But you know the irony. Atiku himself was in PDP. When some of us raised this advocacy, when we were in opposition, National Conscience Party, but they did nothing against it. And that their failure then turned around to rob them. I use the word qualified to them because we are all involved in this. Meaning that we should always be very honest and simple in working to ensure that the right things are done, to ensure that our electoral process is even-handed.
But you're also aware that already INEC is under attack, because for every election that is conducted in this country, INEC is always at the center of it. Those that are at the losing end will be accusing INEC with colluding with those that win and all of that. By the time INEC began to get involved in interpreting and proving that party ABC won, or XYZ was the one that won the election, don't you think it's
let me put it this way.
To
Assuming you're a managing director of a bank, I get me, and the bank had taken a decision that certain projects should be carried out, and you, the managing director, did that, and there are issues. Either one of the persons who was involved in all of that, a third party, now raise allegation that this bank had not done this. What you do is to call the managing director to come and explain. You are giving account of what you did. Do you understand? Now, after giving that account, the other parties who were involved can now come in. But we know that under our law, where we have it now, they say he who alleges proves. And that is on that basis, you say, okay, if a petitioner is one who alleges that there was electoral irregularity or fraud, do you understand? The onus is on him to do that. We are saying that, yes, we are not challenging that, but that to make, since we have reached a point where things are not working, do you understand? Can we try this other method? Do you understand? Let INEC. That way, even INEC will sit up. INEC official will sit up. I sympathize with the INEC people. In all sincerity, the problem cannot be entirely blamed on INEC. No, that is not true. The human elements among the politicians and their supporters play a lot of role here. You understand? That is not to say that INEC cannot also take responsibility, because most time you see connivance among the electoral officers, and also allegedly. Of course, some have been proved. Some have actually been proved. You are aware that some INEC officials have been convicted. Exactly. I mean, so I can, well, I can rightly use such word. But the point is this. I mean, to give the benefit of the doubt, the fact is that if the politicians should be responsible enough to make laws, you understand, that will make it easier for INEC to play its own role. Do you understand? Then we'll have a way to progress, so that they too, when they know they keep moving from one party to another, you know, when you are in this party, you see nothing wrong in an anomaly. Tomorrow you move to the other one, that anomaly you fail to correct there now hunts you down here. You now begin to laugh. Some of us will simply also laugh, help you to laugh, because, I mean, the point is that you should be honest enough. Whether or not it favors you, do what is worth doing, what is permissible, what will promote the collective good. I think that way we make a lot of progress.
Okay, people are already insinuating that this particular verdict is going to affect the other governors who are in waiting. We know for a fact that by Monday, the governor of Sokoto State should be able to know his fate, and next will be Ganduje and the rest. Would you?
Without prejudice to the rule of judicial precedent. In other words, once the Supreme Court had given a decision, the decision may be binding on this other matter or the courts below it, or sometime even the Supreme Court itself, you understand, except where it could be distinguished, all of that. So the point is that every case has its own uniqueness, or every case is unique in its own.
If it's like that, what is it that we usually had in the case of X versus Z?
That's what I'm saying here. The rule under judicial precedent is that where a superior court of record had given a decision on a subject matter, given a set of facts and issues, where a lower court in that hierarchy, you understand, finds a case before it, where the subject matters were the same, the issues were the same, even though the parties may not be the same, do you understand? That lower court is bound to follow the decision earlier taken by the superior court. Of course, here, the Supreme Court decision is the most authoritative, meaning that if a court of appeal, which is superior to a high court, had taken a decision A on a same set of facts and issues and all of that, and Supreme Court had taken a different decision on that, the high court would be under judicial precedent bound to follow the decision of the Supreme Court and not the Court of Appeal.
Okay.
However, where the lower court can distinguish, they call it the principle of distinguishing. In other words, if the lower court can say, look, although in Supreme Court, so facts, issues, subject matter were determined, or were the issues before the Supreme Court, where it reached this decision. However, in this decision, in this case before me, this subject matter was not the same subject matter with that. This issue was not the same issue that made the Supreme Court to take that decision. And on that ground, you understand, with due respect to the decision of the Supreme Court, you understand, this court, would disagree with the learned justices and hold this view. So a lower court is permitted, you understand, to depart from the decision of a superior court where facts, subject matters are distinguishable. Do you understand? That is allowed. But where the facts, the issues are the same and all of that, and you now hold it, of course, if the matter gets to the Supreme Court, of course, sometimes it may be punished, depending if there is a fraud and all of that, but usually it will always be set aside. So, meaning that the Supreme Court can even depart from its earlier decision. If having taken a decision on a certain matter, do you understand, which became a precedent, another matter comes before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court finds that there are certain degree of differences or distinction in the elements that inform them, in the issues that inform them to take a decision in the earlier case. You understand? The Supreme Court can do that also. So these are actually, are permissible. But in all of this, there should be a sense of justice and fairness. Remember that justice should not just be done, but should be seen to have been done. Meaning, sometimes the impression of the members of the public, when I mean members of the public, honest, sincere, unbiased members of the public.
Everybody is a member of the public.
What I'm saying so is this. Majority of the members of the public can feel that, look, there is injustice in a particular case. But if you are enlightened in law and you see that, look, the court decision was sound in law, even though it may not be in tandem with the sentiments of the people. You understand? You have scenarios like that. I mean, when the Supreme Court said Buhari was overqualified, up till today, some Nigerians still believe that Supreme Court was wrong. But when you study the Constitution very well, particularly Section 318 of 99 Constitution as amended, you will now see reason. In fact, you wouldn't even want, you will see why the Supreme Court said Buhari was overqualified, and that is the truth. Do you understand? But that would still not go down well with some members of the public. So the point I'm making here is that, yes, the public opinion is important in weighing the decision and all of that, the public, but at the same time, we should try to let it be informed public opinion, not the one that is
people just pick up from
as a result of our ethno-religious sentiments and all of that.
Or religious sentiments.
You get that? And that's why the media plays a critical role. And like I've always said, let the media practitioners be up and doing what? Carrying investigative journalism, investigation, so that, sometimes if you set the agenda, most times our media, yes, they've done very well, but sometimes you still have a story whereby the media seem to be reactionary. You understand? They just react to issues instead of setting at it. In fact, our political leaders have been largely irresponsible over time because our media have failed, reasonable degree, to set the agenda. You must set the agenda. If, for example, what do Nigerians want? You engage those who want to contest elections. Don't wait for them to say the issue is that. Sometimes politicians have a way of diverting public attention from real issues to all those diversional antics, and we follow them. So sometimes the media feels relaxed, not critical enough to refuse to allow the politician to dictate the pace. You represent as the first estate of the realm, you represent the public, and therefore the media should be very critical in setting the agenda at every time, so that the politicians will not deceive the people or hoodwink the people to distract the people from the real issues to irrelevant issues. I mean, a lot of irrelevancies we concern ourselves with in the country. You understand? Which ordinarily do not add value to the collective good and all that. That's the point I'm making here. So, the public opinion, good as it is, and leaders should be sensitive to that, should also be distilled from our ethno-religious bigotry, our ethno-religious or sectional sentiments, to inform position, the collective good. that way, Nigeria will be a better place. People will now have opportunity to do that. I know it's going to be difficult because of the social media. You know, in the established conventional media, you have hierarchies, you have editors and all that.
You have ethics, you have code of ethics that you have to follow.
Of course. But in the social media, everybody is a professor. You just wake up, sit in the one corner of your house and you're... And that is why even when people talk about regulating the social media, some misunderstand it. Okay. Some taking in a narrow perspective.
They said media is about to be gapped.
The truth is this. We all want the social media. The social media has come to stay. At least you cannot take it away. And it has helped to mobilize the people, the citizenry, to get involved, you understand, in the political process. But at the same time, there must be some level of regulation so that the same social media should not be used to call... Somebody can raise a rumor that something is happening in Abuja here. Before you know it, people will run riot. And before you know... I mean, there was a time in that university, somebody raised an alarm. You know, my university there, I wouldn't mention it. You know, it was noted for cultism, you know. And you know what happened? A student was in class, and there was cockroach. She just saw cockroach. She raised alarm. Because that period in the university, we had cases of cult attack.
There was tension everywhere.
There was tension. So when she raised this alarm, simply because she found the cockroach, people thought it was another cult attack. My dear, in less than how many minutes, the people that sustained injury only got those.
Just like the case of bathing with salt during Ebola.
Of course.
How many people got...
Therefore, there should be a way of making the law such that before you post anything on social media, you should have undertaken or reflected to know the consequences of posting a wrong message that will undermine public safety and security.
Let me know your thoughts there. We're battling with time now. Your last word to Nigerians, as Nigerians are busy reacting to this judgment. We know more judgments are coming, and definitely it's not going to go down well with everybody.
Well, Nigeria should understand that when they say that the Supreme Court is infallible, it is infallible not because it cannot make some errors. It is infallible because it is the last court in the land. In other words, one way or the other, there must be an end to litigation. So, the Supreme Court must take a final decision. However, we are also enjoining the Supreme Court justices to be persuaded and be sensitive to the interests of justice. Justice and justice. Fair play should be the way to go. Let not subject the essence of justice in the society, to the pangs of sectional, selfish, or greedy interests. Let the essence of justice be reflected in a decision. We concede that they may not be perfect, but let them dare to be perfect. Because by being focused toward the perfection of justice, you understand, that way, the nuances in the negativity and all that usually make people to feel bad will be reduced over time. For the members of the public, please, let's not take laws into our hands. The politicians will come and go, but then Nigeria should remain for us. So if you are a candidate, you are the person you voted for is deemed not to have been successful at the end of the road, you understand? That is not the end. Life will continue. Take it and move on. But beyond that, my message to Nigerians, for God's sake, let us get proactively involved in politics. We are all concerned with the fact that those who are in power today are not giving us the best. That some of them have been in power for so long. Do you know why? We keep them there by our continuous refusal to get proactively involved in democratic process. Please, join political parties. Don't just join. Take effective part even at the primary level so that you will have a say as to who carries your party's flag. Not only to sit down, the players whom we call to be bad, do their thing. Then when the results come, you now blame them again, no?
Barrister, time is up, time is up. I've been getting the signs to round up. That was a very beautiful and inciting, educating discussion. And we believe that our viewers are watching and they've heard it all. Nigerians, be proactive, be active in politics. Supreme Court, let there be justice all around. But no matter what, different folks for different strokes for different folks. It can never be the same for everybody. Thank you very much for being part of the program. And to our viewers, we say thank you for investing your time on this program. Join us again tomorrow for the pidgin version of the program, Waiting They Happen. Enjoy the rest of your day. I am Charity Tanko.